When I first came to France 12 years ago, it was supposed to be for only 1 year. And if you would have told me then that I would still be here all this time later, that I would become French, that I would build my career here, my home, I probably wouldn't believe you. But life is full of surprises, which gives me a sense of peace in a sense, because even my life 5 years ago looks so different to how it does today. But yeah, a question I get asked a lot in this channel, especially from people who haven't been following my journey for that long, is would I ever come back to the US to live? If I were to leave Paris, it would surely be to live in the countryside. I love the beach. I love small villages, or maybe even in another European country, but not back to the US for a multitude of reasons that I'm going to talk about in this video. I remember when I first came to Paris, I was out one night, I was young, and I remember this guy around my age telling me that France gets inside of your bones and it changes you. And I think that a lot of young people who move here, especially like in your early 20s, you find something here that you can't find anywhere else. And I know for myself, I've spent the majority of my adult years in France, and so I really feel like I found myself here. And whenever I go back to the US to visit, to see my family, it's almost like I'm returning to my teenage self in a sense. I don't know the US as an adult. And so I think that that's a big part of it, but not the only reason. So I've broken this video down into categories from logistics, finances, but also by feeling, because I think that how we feel is so important and underrated a lot in the decision-making process. It doesn't cost a lot to feel rich in this country. You know, you can go to a cafe and spend hours sitting in a cafe and writing and drinking really good cheap coffee. The food here is really affordable. I remember going back to the US for Christmas and seeing grapes for like $10, and I was like, that is crazy. Also, you know, the train system here is so amazing that you can go to other countries really easily. So the accessibility to other EU countries is also an amazing plus, because, for example, in Florida, where I'm from, you'd have to travel quite far to see something different. But when you live in Europe, you can get on a train and in 2 or 3 hours have a whole new culture at your fingertips. And on top of that, I feel like France is a really great place for creatives to build a life here. In France, the work week is 35 hours compared to the 40 hours in the US, and artists are seen as a valuable member of society. And that's not just something that's said, like that's definitely seen in the fabric of the culture, from, you know, very accessible and affordable art studios. I remember as soon as I got out of school, I was able to get a super affordable art studio, and I wasn't ashamed or afraid to tell people that I was an artist. And on top of that, for example, if you live in a big city like Paris, you have access to museums, and, you know, everything is so walkable or bikeable. Like, I love to take my bike everywhere, and I actually don't even have my driver's license anymore. My driver's license expired, but probably honestly for the best, because in the short time I had my driver's license, I got in 2 car accidents. And it's true that in the US, if you don't live in a major city, a car is so important. I think that, like, when you're coming from somewhere far away, your differences are your superpower. Not being afraid of failure has sort of set me apart here in a sense, because French people definitely have a great work ethic, but I think that something that is on the negative side is they're taught to really sort of blend in a sense, and to not make waves or to fail, especially. Like, I used to be a nanny for a while, and I saw how in the school systems failure was really something to be afraid of, and I don't have that fear of failure. And so I think that when you move to a place, all of your differences become your strengths, and so I really like everything that sort of makes me different here.
I wanted to start off with how I feel in France and how France changed me and gave me the courage to follow my dreams, and actually even logistically how I was able to follow my dreams. As I think a lot of people know, taxes in France are so fucking high. But having said that, over time you get back what you put in. And for example, when I was in university, I had lost my job, and during that time when I lost my job, I was able to get unemployment for a whole year for the time that I had lost my job. And in that time was when I actually started my YouTube channel. And so I really like how France is a socialist country in the sense where childcare is extremely affordable, and you feel like you're helping others, you know, with the taxes that you pay. And then also, you know, with healthcare, you yourself are getting your healthcare paid for. So yeah, not only did France give me the inspiration to become a full-time artist and content creator and share my life, but also logistically, like, I would never have been able to have the time to devote to my art, or even like the resources after school with, you know, getting affordable art studios. Like, I know, for example, in New York, a lot of the artists that I know work from home because art studio is extremely expensive. Now, just romanticizing a place and feeling good there isn't reason enough that like I couldn't move back to the US. But for example, logistics. So when I came here, I decided to get my master's here because schooling is extremely cheap compared to the US. I think in the US per year it can be 40 grand to get an education, which is crazy. I qualified for, in Florida, it's like Bright Futures. So if you get good grades in high school, you don't have to pay for your first couple years of schooling if you do community college. So that's what I opted in for. But when I came to France, I didn't think I was gonna go back to school, but then I was like, well, schooling is practically free. However, having said that, my master's in fine art from a French institution would never translate to the US. For example, I couldn't be an art teacher in the US, or, I mean, I guess one thing that's really good about the US is, you know, you're able to switch fields based on your experience, but when it comes to a creative career, I think it's a bit more difficult to do that. So just logistically, you know, the education that I got here would not translate to the US. And, you know, like, the more I think about it, like, the more every aspect of the life that I've built here would be really hard to transfer. Even paying taxes here over the course of my adult life, I'm paying into my future, I'm paying into my retirement. So that would not translate to the US either. And on another note, in 2023, I bought this apartment that I'm sitting in now, and I worked to renovate it, and, you know, having a mortgage here, having my life here. I was talking to my mom about it when I was getting my loan, because I got a loan out, and basically I'm paying back the loan on the apartment instead of a rent, but it's as high as a rent basically. But anyway, it's going to be mine in 25 years, so whatever. But having said that, I remember talking to my mom at the time, and I was like, it was in 2023 when I bought this place, and I was like, gosh, like, I don't know if this is the right time to buy in France because the interest rates are so high right now. Because a few years ago, like in 2021, the interest rates were like 1%, which is crazy. And she's like, She's like, well, what interest rate did you get? And I was like, 3.8%. And she was like, that is so low compared to the interest rates you can get on a mortgage in the US. And housing has gone up so much in the US. I think like when I got out of high school in Florida, me and my sister moved out together when I was 18, and we got a place together, and I think both of us were just like paying like, I think it was like $400 each. So like our entire flat in like the Orlando suburbs was $800, and now you could never rent a place for that much. And housing is the same. And so I think that although like Paris is seen as like an expensive place to live, like I said, like rent is still pretty affordable, and they also give you government aid. For example, if you're under a certain income, they will give you money each month to help you pay your rent. So there's so much help for people here. It really feels like they care about your quality of life. And I feel like the US, there's so many great things about it, but at this stage of my life now, I just could never like have the quality of life in the US that I built for myself in France. And I think that if you're young and you're considering leaving the US and moving to another European country, I would so encourage you to do it, because you have nothing to lose, and only, even if you don't end up staying, you have so much lessons and experience to gain. And I think it's just such a character development that you can do when you're younger, even when you're older, you know what I mean? I know a lot of people who move to foreign countries in their 30s and their 50s, and I think that putting yourself outside of your comfort zone can only really help you grow, because we only grow through adversity. And I think that that is the real lesson that moving to France has taught me, is that I had so much adversity living here. Like, not only did I build my life and my career here and my sense of identity as an adult, mais j'ai appris la langue et ça m'avait pris vraiment très longtemps. And I love speaking the language. It's very stimulating to me to, yeah, like actually like create a new identity for myself in this other language. And it would be so sad for me to move back to the US and not speak the language anymore. So that's just like a little bit of a side note. But I think something that I think shocks a lot of people though is that I do live alone. I think it's not for the faint of heart, in the sense of like, you can have moments of loneliness. Obviously in a big city there is, you know, an international community, but even so, like being far from your family in times of crisis isn't always easy. But I would say that I actually feel closer to my family living far away than I did living in the US. Why? Because yes, I'm only going home once a year. It's so cute that I still call it home. My home is like my mom's house. I only go back to Florida once a year. But having said that, it's such a more intense, condensed period of time. It's like a good 2 weeks where we're having sleepovers, and that's more time I think that I'd be spending with them if I actually lived in Florida. Because I probably, honestly, if I lived in the US, I probably would live in like New York City or someplace like that, and I probably get to see them just as much or even less, or maybe like on big holidays. But I don't know if I do like a big chunk of time like I do now. But because the plane ticket to get home to Florida is so expensive, like I am staying a good chunk of time. And the amazing part as well is like I get to help them discover a new culture. And for example, like my sister came and visited me, and she actually got engaged here when she came and visited me with her now husband. My mom has come and visited. I'm trying to get my brother and my dad to come visit at some point. But yeah, I think that like, obviously like I touched on a lot of reasons why I feel like France corresponds to me better as a person and an artist. But actually like logistically, when you've spent a long period of time in another country, when you go back to your home country, it's not the same as when you left it. Like, you always expect when you go back that things are going to be frozen in time, but people have moved forward with their lives. I think a lot of people I went to high school with don't even live in the same city anymore. So basically, if I were to go back to the US, I'd have to start over from scratch. I'd probably have to go back to school. I'd have to rethink my whole career. Obviously, I wouldn't be documenting probably my YouTube channel in the same way. So for all of those reasons, I would never move back to the US. Where else would I move? That's another question. I probably, I think I said this earlier in the video, if I was to leave Paris, I'd probably live in the south of France. I really love, that's one thing I love about France in general as a country. It's really small. No, let me take that back. I know people are gonna come for me in the comments. France is small? No, France is not small in the grand scheme of things, but compared to the US, it is small. And you don't have to go very far to see other things. So yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit of why after 12 years, I don't see myself ever going back to the US, even though it'll always hold a special place in my heart. I think I'm a European girly, you know what I mean? And she always will be. And yeah, I wanted to also make this video for anyone who's new to my channel and who, yeah, maybe found my videos recently and wanted to hear a little bit about my journey and my experience here. So thank you guys for watching. I wanted to let you know before I ended the video that for the coming months of November and December, I am doing a sale for Christmas on my journals. These are journals with a hand-painted cover that I made. It's an affirmation journal series. So this one is called I Know Where I Belong, which I think is fitting for this video. And I'm also doing it on the I Love Being Sensitive workbook, which is a workbook for sensitive, creative people. And that is for the holidays. I'm doing that. So yeah, I want to end the video just by saying that if you are thinking about moving to a new place and are worried about yeah, like being lost or, you know, disconnecting to where you come from, don't be afraid of that, because when that happens, I think that's when you find your true self. Because I think I was always defined by who I was when I was growing up, like where I came from, you know, my family circumstance, my culture that I came from, and putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and seeing your differences and getting to appreciate those helps you grow so much. And like I said, adversity is how we level up. So I hope this can be inspiring to you, especially if there's any Florida girls out there wanting to move to France. If I can do it, so can you. So I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video.